Hello, welcome back to another Design Clips at W+9. This is Dawn, and today I am going to give you a closer look at the Bountiful Blooms and Foxy Friends dies. So today's card is going to feature all dies, as a matter of fact, and no stamps. I'm going to show you how I create these custom colored die cuts, along with a little inlaid die cutting to create this cute little Foxy Hello card. There are lots of little flowers included in the Bountiful Blooms set, and I'm going to die cut them several times from our white cardstock. I'm using the magnetic platform here, which I pretty much use all the time for my dies now. But this has a lot of little dies in it, and sometimes they can have trouble cutting through if you keep them all connected. If I have that problem, I just separate some of them and run them through separately. Here I've separated the banner and the hello word, and I'll run those through separately. The more intricate the die, you'll find that sometimes this is the problem, and usually separating them out will solve it. So I'm going to die cut this several times, and any extra pieces I can keep off to the side for a future card. I've gone ahead and picked out my color palette here, and I'll be using our pure colored die inks along with the Sukaniko sponge daubers to color each of my die cuts. Now I find this to work extremely well for me because I don't use a lot of colored cardstock. So for me, it's much better investment to buy lots of white paper and then just custom color my die cuts when I need a colored cardstock. But you could absolutely just die cut these from colored paper. The other reason that I really like this approach is that I can combine colors and get multicolored die cuts. So for instance, here I've started with our last leaf, and now I'm going to add some of our Ocean Drive to it. And I'm able to get a die cut with a gradient of color on it. So for me, like I said, I don't use a lot of colored cardstock, so this just makes the most sense for me. I keep all of mine in a container, and I label each of them with a label maker, so I have a sponge dauber dedicated for each of my colors, and this is just a really great method for me. So if you too find yourself not using a lot of colored cardstock besides your basics, this might be a great option for you because you could do this with any of your mediums, like your distress inks, any of your other inks that you have on hand, like your Simon Says stamp or your Hero Arts. And the wonderful thing about these inks and this formula of ink is that it dries really smooth. It actually absorbs and sinks into the paper. So the finish on this is, I think, even more beautiful than the colored cardstock itself. And you'll see here when I'm all done, I'll show you a shot of all of them, and it dries so velvety smooth. You can see there off to the side, those are already starting to completely cure and dry. And it is absolutely gorgeous. So for the flowers, I've used our wild mango on those little bud flowers over there. And then for these, I'm using a little of our flamingo ink on the outside. And these flowers are going to be nested. So the inside flower is going to be not wild mango, I'm lying. It's going to be our Miami Spice. So when these two layer it together, there'll be Miami Spice on the inside with a edge of flamingo. And then for these little buds, I'm only going to use the insides, but they will be our Miami Spice as well. Now, alternately, you could just start off by coloring your cardstock, and this is going to work great for these little pieces, like right here, these little dots. I would never try to sit and color them with a sponge dauber. So instead, I've just rubbed either the pad directly to the cardstock or use my sponge dauber to color a section of cardstock, and then I can directly cut from this. And this is great for those little pieces, and you could do it for these larger pieces as well. I just wanted to show you both ways. So that's what I'm going to do for all of the little dot areas. Another really great thing about this die set is that all of the individual flowers can be layered on top of each other as well to create three-dimensional flowers. So to adhere the flowers together, there's several ways that you could do this. You could either cover the entire backside of your cardstock with Stick It, which is a double-sided adhesive paper, and then do your die cutting. You could die cut and then run this through like a Xyron sticker machine, or you could just use a liquid adhesive like I'm doing here. So I'm using the multi-matte medium to just start adhering and layering my flowers together. So I've picked a couple of different ways to layer them together. I'll just drag these die cut through the multi-matte medium so that I don't get too much on the back, and then just adhere them on top of each other. So this is definitely my liquid adhesive of choice. It dries clear and matte, so you really can't see anything. Now these little dots are trickier. They will take some patience, but I think that they add so much to it. And you'll see me fumble around with them a little bit here, trying to pick them up with the tweezers. But if this is if you just don't have time for that, or you want an easier way, you could always use a pearl dot or an enamel dot. Liquid pearls would work great here, tiny sequin, or even some stickles. So really, I mean, it's up to you. Pick the method that is easiest for you. I happen to like a challenge, and once I had die cut these, I was like, I'm gonna make this work. So do what's easier for you. And now it's time to do my inlaid die cutting, and I need to create kind of a guide of where I'm going to cut my pieces from, because I'm going to cut it out of this and then I'm going to lay it back in like a puzzle piece. So I wanted to create a wreath. So I've laid down a circle die on top of my die cut panel here, and this is what I'm going to use as my guide. And then I'm just going to use my pencil to mark off some indicator areas, some visual cues for myself. So maybe the bottom of the stem here, the top, and then the outermost edge. And then this will give me a guide as to where to line up my die on the die cutting machine. And I'm going to leave that circle in place, because take it away and it's just a bunch of tick marks on the paper. So I'm leaving it in place until I get that first die laid down. So I can see here, I'm looking at my pencil marks. I know that's the top. It lines up with the bottom and the outer edge. Wonderful. So now I can move that circle away and lay down my other die. And again, I'll line it up with the marks at the top and the bottom and the outer edge. So now I know I have a really good guide of where these dies should go, and it will keep my circle. And then I'll just repeat it once more, and that will complete my circle shape for my wreath. So I'm going to take this panel and tape it down to a standard 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card base. I need plenty of adhesive back there behind that wreath area, because this is what's going to hold those die cuts into place. And so I'm using the Tombow permanent adhesive. And again, I'm not being greedy with the adhesive. I like my cards to stay in one piece when they go through the mail. I'll line this up, push it down, and now I can just start fitting each of those little pieces into their respective places, just like a puzzle. Now, you don't have to do this inlaid die cutting technique with this. You could have just adhered these directly to the top. The thing that I like about inlaying it is I'm creating a nice flat surface to then glue my flowers down to when I start decorating this wreath. We've already got quite a bit of dimension and layers going, so if I can eliminate one layer of bulk, that's going to be great, especially for sending it through the mail. But before we adhere this all down, we want to go ahead and start die cutting and creating our fox. Now this little guy is so adorable. He comes from the Foxy Friends die set, and you can make either a fox or a raccoon, a cat, or I guess pretty much any animal with this silhouette that you can think of. But to create the fox today, I'm going to cut him once from craft cardstock and then again from white cardstock. And yes, did you guys catch my wardrobe change? Yeah, I am wearing a different shirt now. I guess I'm getting all high class now. I need multiple costume changes during a video. No, probably the truth is that I finally took a shower in between this filming. So to put this together, I've taken the whole silhouette base from the craft, layered a white face underneath, and then I'm going to glue the top portion, which creates the markings of the fox on top of that. I'm going to push out the eyes and the ears on this white piece, and then I'm going to use a little bit of liquid adhesive to adhere this. I was going to do it with the tape runner, but I discovered that the liquid actually works a lot better because you can get more even coverage. And then you have a little playtime to kind of mush it around and line it up, make sure that it's perfectly lined up. Now for this top piece, I'm going to also put some glue on the back of it, and then the eyes and the ears I've left in on this one, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and push those little insets down to the bottom layer. So they're in there securely and snugly, but they actually look inset as they should. To color in the eyes, the ears, and the nose, I'm going to use a Copic multiliner for the eyes. I just use a Copic marker to color in the inside of his ears, and then I'll also use a black Copic marker to color his nose. And of course, you could use any marker that you have on hand to do this. Even a black ballpoint pen would probably work. Now, if you didn't want to fuss with the small nose here, you could probably just put a little black dot with your Copic multiliner and then add a little glossy accents on top, and that would work just fine as well. I do end up putting glossy accents on his eyes and nose anyway. So again, if the little dot was too much for you to manage, then you could skip it, use a black dot. Here I'm just adding the tip of his white tail here, and that will finish off our little fox guy. Now he's going to sit right in the middle here, and I can now start building my wreath around him. And I love using the liquid adhesive for this because I can come in and start tucking things behind each other. Because the liquid glue stays wet a little bit longer, it gives me a little bit of play time to really arrange these. And I'll just continue working my way around building up my little wreath here until I'm happy with the arrangement. And again, because we inlaid those original die cuts, I have a nice flat surface to adhere these to, and they're all going to stay securely in place. You might also notice that I made a little design change there. I had originally colored these leaves with our last leaf color, and I thought that they got lost, so I die cut a couple more, and then I colored them with the Ocean Drive ink instead. Now it's time to add our banner, and I colored the outline of the banner with our fairy dust ink, and now I'm going to use the foam tape to, one, hold those two pieces together. I'm going to make sure that the foam tape overlaps the edge of the outline and the banner itself, and I'm also going to use it to add dimension and pop this banner up. I'll be using the multi-matte medium again to adhere the fox directly to the card base, and then I'll also use it to adhere that hello, which I've covered with our Ocean Drive, to the banner, and then that banner will sit right there at the base of the fox. Now it's just time to add a few more little finishing touches, and for that I'm going to use some of the larger die cuts in the set to just create a little cluster of flowers on the left and the right side of the banner. You'll also notice that I took some of those little leftover dots that get cut out from this flower right here, and I've spread them out sporadically around the wreath itself. I think this just adds a nice finishing touch, and if you wanted, you could even cover each one of those little dots with a little wink of Stella, and I think that would look really cute too, or even some glossy accents. Really, there's a lot of different ways that you can customize these dies or add just that little extra something that really makes them stand out. I love the mix of the large and the small flowers, and I really like the way this die looks when you layer up the larger and the smaller flowers. So as you can see, there's a lot of potential to be had with just your die cuts. So I encourage you guys, play around with your die cuts, especially these standalone die cuts like these. There's a lot of different design options. As always, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Remember, you can find all of the featured supplies in the description box and on our blog at stampawaywithme.blogspot.com. You can purchase all of the W+9 supplies at w+9.com, and you can connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and Periscope. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.